There are a large variety of birds of prey, many with different methods of finding food in the wild. In this talk, I'll be covering the scavengers of the world, particularly vultures. Falconry, often referred to as the sport of kings, is rarely practiced in America. It intertwines the art of hunting with the companionship between humans and birds of prey. Originating in ancient times, falconry has a rich history spanning from the Middle East to Mongolia and China, and reached its peak around 500 to 1500 AD. At its core, falconry involves the training of birds of prey, such as falcons, hawks, and eagles, to hunt for food. This partnership between falconer and bird is built on trust and mutual respect. An important thing to remember is that this bird is not obedient and will fly away to do its own thing. If you don't care for it properly, or if it feels like you just aren't a good hunting partner, it will leave. It is a symbiotic relationship, and the bird is more in charge of the situation than you are. A notable occurrence with how falconry spread across Europe was with King Richard the Lionheart of England. King Richard was deeply impressed by a young boy fighting for his life to defend his family's injured falcon from a wild animal. King Richard then adopted falconry to his house, making it more popular among nobles. Another king that interacted with falconry was Rugero II, also known as Roger II, who dispelled the rule condemning public use of falcons, declaring that falconry is a God-given right. After this, it became common to bring your bird to official events such as the court and parties. Eventually, bringing your falcon into churches was banned because of how loud, messy, and smelly it would get. Rugero also created the Falconry Rulebook, the same book that is used for the basis of knowledge today. He wrote this book in several different languages, including Latin, French, and Italian. Rugero was the first ruler in known history to create hunting laws limiting catch size and protecting endangered species, creating the first wildlife reserve in the process. Boar hunts and fox hunts, where 20 horsemen and their hounds chased a singular boar or fox on horseback, started to be seen as inhumane. This also created the idea of a poacher, someone who disobeyed these rules or purposely went after rare or endangered species for profit. Falconry started slipping out of fashion around 1800 when guns became reliable enough for hunting. With the accuracy and firepower of rifles, hunters could take down game from a distance without the need for extensive training and partnership required in falconry. Apart from the amount of work it takes to care for a bird properly, as opposed to a gun, people simply moved on because guns were the next big trend. As human society moved on, wars began to use carrier pigeons to transmit messages. Seeing as it was difficult to shoot a pigeon out of midair, falcons began to see use again. When a carrier pigeon was spotted, the falconer would release their falcon and pursue the pigeon mid-flight. The falcon would then injure or kill the pigeon, preventing it from delivering its message. This method of intercepting carrier pigeons with falcons effectively disrupted enemy communications and gathered intelligence. You'd be rewarded if you brought in a message from an intercepted carrier pigeon, even if it wasn't important information. Important information would include a love letter from a soldier to his wife, and they would just maybe give him $5 or something. While the sport of falconry has died back in popularity, in some countries it is preserved by expert falconers and their apprentices. In the United States, there are an estimated 6,500 falconers. The United Kingdom boasts a larger community with approximately 33,000 falconers. However, Dubai stands out with over 1 million falconers and counting, reflecting the deep cultural and historical significance of falconry in the region. And these numbers demonstrate when the sport started and where it branched to. In Dubai, on the ground floor, with the pinnacle of medical technology, they have a falconry daycare where you can leave your falcon for a day while you go somewhere important. Moving on to the specifics of vultures. Physically, vultures are equipped with long, hooked beaks designed for tearing flesh. However, they have weak feet and blunt talons, making them less adept at hunting or defending themselves. Instead of physical confrontations, vultures employ unique defensive tactics. When threatened, they can projectile vomit on their aggressors, expelling half-digested, disease-ridden carrion to deter threats. These birds strongly prefer fresh meat and rely on their acute sense of smell to detect carrion within 12 to 24 hours. This rapid detection helps prevent the spread of disease by removing carcasses before they become too decomposed and cause other animals sickness. The powerful stomach acids in their digestive systems kill harmful bacteria, viruses, and fungi, ensuring their waste doesn't harbor these pathogens. Vultures can penetrate carcasses easily due to their hooked beaks and puzzle-solving minds. I witnessed firsthand a vulture doing a dog puzzle where they flip tiles and get the meat underneath. Vultures have amazing object permanence, so you can make the puzzle jam in interesting ways and they'll still solve it. Vultures exhibit unique hygiene practices, such as urinating on their feet. This behavior disinfects their feet, regulates body temperature, and eliminates parasites. Additionally, vultures have fewer feathers on their heads to prevent gore from sticking and getting caught when they stick their heads into carcasses. Vultures aren't hunted naturally by other creatures. They're mostly ignored even if they're right next to a lion, so they wouldn't have to worry about demonstrating their vomiting capabilities if it weren't for poachers. When a poacher kills an animal, the vultures will fly above the body, waiting for their turn to eat. This potentially alerts game wardens who might see the circling vultures there to clean up carcasses, so the poachers will attack vultures to hide their presence. Vultures fit into the food web like any other animal in the community, except with a unique role. They aren't just the cleanup crew, they also prevent animals from getting sick. If there weren't any vultures, bacteria and disease would be a nightmarish hazard everywhere. Some species of vultures display interesting behaviors, such as blushing when excited about food and socializing with other birds. For example, white-necked vultures show this blushing behavior. Despite their varied vocalizations, vultures do not have vocal cords. Their noises result from air passing through their throats very fast. And this is what a vulture might sound like if you haven't heard it yet. Vultures are, unfortunately, the fastest declining birds in history. Several factors contribute to the rapid decline. People often kill vultures because they're considered bad omens and disease carriers. The lappet-faced vulture, the largest kind of vulture, resides in Africa and faces similar threats. Habitat loss further exacerbates the problem, causing a chain reaction that leads to more vultures losing their homes. You can help out by choosing sustainable products for your home and not buying too much plastic if you can help it. Promoting sustainable practices such as choosing eco-friendly products, as previously mentioned, and engaging in community efforts can reduce habitat destruction and provide economic alternatives to poaching for local communities. Ethical consumption, such as avoiding products made from endangered animals and adopting sustainable lifestyle choices, further supports conservation efforts. When I was working for my falconry mentor, Will Lebrano, a group of men came and teased a vulture and made fun of it, mostly for how it looked. I explained to them everything vultures do for the environment and that they're very important. The men changed their tone and apologized to the vulture. This bias against vultures would be solved if everyone could have that happen, so share this information amongst your friends if you have the time. If you know any information on the perpetrators of poaching, take the time to call your wildlife authority to report a wildlife violation, and maybe donate to bird reserves like the Muncaster Castles program. Every little bit of help makes the world a better place, and by taking these steps, you can help animals live better lives. Thank you for listening to my talk.
A few questions. Can we ask you? Can you explain the difference between vultures and buzzards?
Contrary to popular belief, vultures are not buzzards. Hawks are buzzards. That is just a general term for hawks and falcons, all of those guys. Vultures are not buzzards, it's a separate thing.
There's something I Googled because I saw something one day. I saw what I call buzzards in a tree. This was early in the morning. And they had it was two of them, they had their wings spread out.
Were they like in a tree?
They were in a tree, up in the top of like a pine. And so I Googled it because I thought it was weird, that they had their wings like that. I've never seen anything like that.
Was it like this?
They just kind of had them spread out, yeah.
Like all the way, or was it curved?
I think it looked like it was all the way. So I Googled it, and it said that sometimes they do that just to dry off if the night had been kind of damp, but also that sometimes they did that to after they've eaten. Yucky stuff.
Right.
That it helped to make that go away from their bodies.
Well, if they get it on their bodies, then they'll ruffle, they'll shake it off, and sometimes it involves flapping their wings if it was especially bloody. But most likely it was just sunning, and or they brought something up there. They found a dead squirrel and they were mantling over their food.
It was so early that I think it was, could have possibly been just drying off. Because it was early in the morning, so it was dewy.
Was it raining overall?
It had not rained, but it was super early, like between 6:30 and 7 o'clock in the morning.
Humid.
It was still kind of dewy out.
Probably just drying off,
Yeah.
enjoying the sun.
What's your favorite personal experience you've ever had with a vulture?
My favorite personal experience I've ever had with a vulture is when I got to hold one. I got to help take care of a vulture who had an accident earlier in his life that caused him to walk around a little difficultly, but he was the nicest bird I've ever encountered. I held him and he kicked around a bunch because they like doing that, but I learned how to football him, is what you call it. You hold him like a football.
Did he have a name?
His name was Scurvy, and he got spittle all over my arm.
Of all the birds you've worked with, which of them exhibit behaviors most like a falcon? Or are they completely separate in their habits?
Oh,
and
yeah,
behaviors?
They're completely separate. Birds are completely separate in their habits. Falcons, that's not particularly an ideal. Falcons can be complete jerks too. Hawks are usually, in my experiences, Harris hawks are some of the best to work with. Harris hawks naturally in the wild, one of the reasons they're great to work with is because they are so body conscious. They stack on top of each other in trees and make sure that they don't stab each other with claws. A lot of other birds will sit on your arm and not care. They'll just dig in like it's a branch, but a Harris hawk can walk on you without hurting you. So, falcons, that's not particularly a kind of bird you want to strive for.
What is mantling?
Mantling is when a bird doesn't trust whoever's around it, or if it's in the wild and has other bird friends who it knows that they're going to steal their food, they have their food underneath them and they put their wings out while they're eating.
Back.
Cover it up. Shield.
Are they trainable like falcons?
Absolutely. Most birds are trainable. Some of them are just especially jerks, but vultures are the nicest birds that I've ever worked with. And they can't really hurt you either with their beak. It just feels like, have you ever had your feet in water and fish come up and bite? That's what it feels like. The most I've had one was he got me right here and he just pinched me, but it's because he thought there was food there. He would never intentionally bite me. An interesting thing, since you brought up falcons and unique behaviors, owls, you have to raise them from an egg, otherwise they will know that they're an owl and just hate you inherently. They have to think that they're a human or that you're an owl as well. Otherwise they won't listen to you, and they'll just attack you and not listen to you and try to get away all the time. And there's still a chance that they might still try to get away. Birds, once again, they do their own thing.
Are they never really tame then?
No.
They need to imprint on you.
They need to imprint on you. That's a big thing about raising birds. You can rehabilitate one from the wild, like a vulture. Vultures, that's one of the reasons they're great, is because they'll just hang out with you. They're naturally social birds, but you need to imprint an owl from a very young age because they're ornery. The only time a vulture would ever projectile vomit is when it's extremely stressed. So if you ever have a vulture projectile vomit on you, it's probably because you did something wrong. And also, you probably shouldn't be that close to a vulture in the first place. Really, my favorite fact, actually, about vultures is that they love eating so much that they will eat until they're full, and then they'll keep eating until they can't fly. And that's partly why they developed projectile vomiting, was because they'll just sit on the ground in a pile, like full bellies, just sitting bathing in the sun, because they know no one's going to attack them unless it's a poacher, and then they'll just throw all of it up at once at you if you like come at them. So that's another reason why they throw up. Partly to fly away, and you getting puke all over you, that's kind of a side effect.
What's their blast radius? I mean, how far can they do that?
I mean, if they're not aiming straight at the ground, from what I remember, it's like pretty impressive. Like, I couldn't do that.
Like
I don't want to do that.
6 feet?
Maybe?